Planning a retreat and executing a retreat are two entirely different things. And if you're not prepared to execute, your entire retreat could fall apart. So I want to walk you through exactly what you need to do to prepare from planning to doing. Because once the planning is done, you need to shift from strategy to execution. And if you don't have a system guiding you on what's coming up next, your retreat could completely fail. You can have every detail written down and still feel like you're spinning the minute things start moving. That's because events don't run on paper. They run on people. Execution isn't just about what's supposed to happen. It's about how it all comes together in real time. Who's doing what happens when someone misses a cue, how handoffs work, and what is the backup plan. And if you don't have things locked in, that smooth plan that you have in your head will begin to unravel fast. Have you ever been to an event where everything looked great on paper, but on site on the day of, everything just was chaos? Let me know down in the comments, because I promise you are not alone. So now that you see that planning doesn't always mean you're ready, let's talk about what really keeps a retreat running. The behind the scenes work that nobody talks about. Execution is a skill. It takes planning, yes, but it also takes systems, experience, and coordination. You need to know how all the pieces fit together, not individually, but as a whole. That's what makes or breaks a guest experience. I often say that the planner is the nucleus of the event. And what I mean by that is that they are in the center, overseeing and monitoring all the different pieces that are being pulled in together to make this one big event happen. When one piece shifts, they are responsible for shifting everything else, making those adjustments so that everything stays in sync. It's not just about solving the problem, but it also includes anticipating problems. A lot of people think event planning is just food tastings, parties, choosing flowers, decorating a pretty space. And yes, those are parts of the job, but what it really takes is vendor calls, managing timelines, revising run of shows for the 10th time, confirming dietary restrictions, fielding tech questions, ensuring accessibility is available for those who need it, rerouting transportation changes, and briefing everyone else on their exact role in the program. That's not the glamorous side that most people see. It's complex coordination that requires a serious amount of attention to detail. If there's no system behind the scenes, what looks smooth on the outside is actually a complex bit of patchwork that is barely being held together. And that's why execution matters. Even if you've already planned your retreat, it's never too late to tighten up your back end. If you're missing a few details or want to double check to make sure that you're not missing anything, you can grab my free retreat planning starter checklist down in the links below. So now that you know what's really happening behind the scenes, let's talk about where a lot of people get blindsided. The assumptions that they're making without even realizing it. A lot of hosts assume that once the big boxes are checked, such as the venue has been selected, the vendors have been selected, your timeline is built and in place, that they're in the clear. But here's the reality. This is just the beginning and where the cracks begin to show. What I see all the time are hosts who don't realize how many assumptions they're making. They assume that the vendors will show up on time and do what they're meant to be doing, without question. The timelines they believe are self-explanatory, that their team will just get it. But unless every expectation has been communicated, confirmed, and documented, you're setting yourself up for drop balls. This is especially true when assigning roles or confirming vendors. Ask yourself, does this person know the scope of their role, or are you assuming they do? Have they agreed to the deliverables and deadlines in writing? You need to make sure you get everything in writing. Do they have the tools and information they need before, during, and after the retreat? These conversations can feel tedious, but they are the exact conversations that need to be had so that you can ensure there's no breakdowns later on. Clarity now saves cleanup later. And speaking of assumptions, let's get into how to spot those warning signs. The small cracks in the plan that could turn into major headaches later on. Because most retreats don't implode suddenly. There is a progression there. They start with subtle signs. Signs that you miss because you might have been too busy. Maybe you're resending the same email that you've already sent 2 to 3 times before. or realizing that you're the only one who knows the answer to a key question, or your team seems confused but no one's saying anything directly. These are cracks in the system, and they only widen as the retreat gets closer. The moment you start saying, I'll just handle it myself, or it'll be easier if I do it, you are on the road to burnout. Don't ignore these flags. They're showing you exactly where the retreat might fall off track. Addressing them early with system, communication, and support is how you create a retreat that runs smoothly. Once you've patched the gaps and clarified expectation, the next challenge is actually putting the plan into action. This is the moment where theory meets reality, because even the most detailed run of show can unravel if people aren't in place to make it happen. What happens when your speaker is running late? When a session ends early? When your photographer needs some additional direction? Your caterer calls about allergies? And a guest is asking where to go, all at the same time. If every single one of those moments comes back to you, then you're not leading the retreat. You're managing the chaos, and that's not where your energy belongs. This is why role planning and contingency plans are so essential. The timeline is just the starting point. Real success is your team knowing how to adapt without needing you for every single item. If you already have your timeline mapped out and your roles assigned, great, you're in a good spot. But if you haven't done your timeline yet and you need some help with some visibility on who's doing what when, then you can grab my free retreat timeline template down below to help you out. Another part that often gets overlooked is how much energy this phase demands and how quickly things can become overwhelming if you don't have the right support in place. Because if you don't have the right systems and support, execution will drain you before the retreat even begins. The hardest part isn't making the plan, it's making the plan happen. The months and weeks leading up to the retreat are where a lot of your energy is going to be taken. It starts slowly, one decision here, one email there, and it builds fast. As the date gets closer, you're finalizing run of show, gathering confirmations, managing documents, tracking vendor deliverables, coordinating team calls, and answering or sending the 100th just checking in email. If everything falls back on you, you become the default problem solver, fielding questions, fixing issues, and filling gaps nonstop. And that's an exhausting place to be in. By the time the retreat actually begins, you're already drained, and that's not how you want to show up for your guests. Planning gets you started, but execution is what determines whether or not your retreat flows or fails. If you actually want to lead your retreat and not micromanage it from behind the scenes, you need a system that supports the people and pieces behind the plan. And if you're ready to make sure that your team, vendors, and speakers are actually ready to deliver, I'm walking you through that next on the video on your screen right now.